Woman is scammed out of her savings, but her brilliant plan to turn the tables on the con artists is simply unbelievable. The sun poured golden light over Maplewood, a small town where dreams seemed to bloom like the flowers in spring. Celestine stirred in her cozy bed, the warmth of the morning sun kissing her face. Today felt different. Today held the promise of new beginnings. She stretched and took a deep breath, her mind racing with thoughts of starting her own business. It was a dream she had nurtured for years, one that danced just out of reach. As she sipped her coffee, the aroma filled her small kitchen, mingling with the scent of fresh pastries from the bakery down the street. Her heart swelled with hope. What if today is the day, she whispered to herself, a flicker of excitement igniting her spirit. But as quickly as the thought came, the reality of her struggles swept in. Bills piled high on the counter reminded her of the weight she carried. Was this dream too far-fetched? Just then, her phone rang, breaking the silence of her thoughts. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, she hesitated before answering. "Hello?" Celestine's voice trembled slightly, uncertainty creeping in. "Is this Celestine?" A deep voice responded, smooth and confident. "I am your benefactor. I have a proposal that could change everything for you." She sat up straighter, her heart racing. "Benefactor? What do you mean?" "I have been following your journey," he continued, "and I believe in your potential. I want to invest in your business idea. A substantial amount, enough to launch you into success." Celestine's mind spun. Could this really be happening? A wave of excitement washed over her, battling with the nagging doubts that whispered in the back of her mind. "What's the catch?" she asked, cautious yet hopeful. "No catch," he assured her. "Just a meeting to discuss the details. You have my word." The line went quiet as Celestine contemplated her next move. This could be the answer to her prayers, a chance to rise from her struggles. But was it too good to be true? She thought about her bills, her dreams, and the desperation that had clung to her for so long. Finally, she took a deep breath. "I'll meet you," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. "When and where?" "Tomorrow at noon, at the coffee shop on Maple Street. I'll be waiting," he replied before hanging up. Celestine stood by the window, gazing out at the vibrant town. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. What if this was the opportunity she had been waiting for? Yet, a small voice in her mind urged caution. She had heard stories of scams, of dreams shattered by deceit. As the day passed, Celestine busied herself with preparations. She wrote down her ideas, practiced what she would say, and tried to silence the doubts creeping in. She spoke to herself in the mirror. "This is your chance, Celestine. You deserve this." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows in her small home. She lay in bed that night, her mind swirling with thoughts of the meeting. Would this man truly help her, or was she walking into a trap? Sleep eluded her as she tossed and turned, the weight of hope and fear pressing down on her. Would tomorrow bring a new dawn or a cruel twist of fate? Celestine closed her eyes, seeking solace in her dreams, unaware that her decision to meet the benefactor would soon entangle her in a web of deceit she could never have imagined. As the night deepened, the town of Maplewood lay quiet, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in Celestine's heart. Celestine sat on the edge of her bed, staring out of the window at the bright morning sun. The light poured into her room, but it did little to lift the heaviness in her heart. She thought of the dreams she had nurtured since she was a child, a cozy bakery filled with the scent of fresh bread, a warm place where people would gather and share stories over coffee and pastries. But those dreams felt far away now, buried under the weight of her responsibilities. As she reminisced, a wave of memories washed over her. She remembered the long hours spent working at the diner, balancing plates and serving coffee to customers who rarely noticed her sacrifice. "I do this for them," she whispered to herself, thinking of her younger siblings who depended on her. She had given up so much to keep her family afloat, and the thought of finally reaching her goals had kept her going. But just as she began to feel a spark of hope, her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. It was the call she had been waiting for, or so she had thought. "Hello, Celestine. This is Marcus. We need to talk about your investment." The voice on the other end was smooth, confident, and made her heart race. After the call ended, Celestine felt a mix of excitement and fear. What if this was the chance she had been waiting for? But deep down, a nagging feeling stirred. What if this is too good to be true? She pondered. Days passed, and the meeting with Marcus loomed closer. Her stomach twisted in knots as she prepared for the encounter. She dressed carefully, wanting to look professional, but also approachable. "You can do this, Celestine," she told herself, trying to silence the voice of doubt. When the day finally arrived, she found herself sitting in a small cafe, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. Marcus arrived, a charming man with a persuasive smile. They spoke about her dreams, her plans, and how his investment could turn everything around. "You have great potential, Celestine. With my help, you could be running that bakery sooner than you think," he said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Celestine waited for the funds to arrive, but the promised investment never materialized. Instead, she found herself drowning in bills and debts. The weight of betrayal pressed down on her. "How could I have been so foolish?" she thought, feeling the sting of tears in her eyes. One evening, she sat on the couch, her mind racing with thoughts of what had gone wrong. Her best friend, Mia, noticed her distress. "Celestine, you look like you've seen a ghost." "What happened?" she asked, sitting beside her. With a heavy heart, Celestine recounted her story. "I thought I had finally found a way out, but it was all a lie. I feel so lost, Mia." Mia listened intently, her brow furrowed in concern. "You're not lost, Celestine. You just need to find the truth," she urged. "You can't let him get away with this. You have to do something." Celestine looked at her friend, the fire of determination igniting in her chest. "You're right. I can't just sit here and wallow in my mistakes. I need to uncover the truth behind this scam," she said, her voice firm. Mia smiled, a mix of support and encouragement in her eyes. "That's the spirit. You're stronger than you think. Let's figure this out together." With renewed purpose, Celestine began her journey of investigation. She spent hours on her laptop, scrolling through forums and articles about online scams. Each click led her closer to understanding the world of deceit that had ensnared her. "I won't let this define me," she murmured, her fingers flying over the keyboard. As she connected with other victims, she felt a sense of camaraderie. They shared their stories, their pain, and their hopes for justice. Celestine realized she wasn't alone in this fight. Each message she read fueled her resolve. She was ready to confront the man who had shattered her dreams. Though fear still lingered in her heart, Celestine understood that she had to confront the truth. It was a painful journey, but it was one she was willing to take. The road ahead was uncertain, but she now had a purpose: to unveil the truth and reclaim her life. Celestine sat at her small kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her. The sunlight streamed through the window, warming her face, but it did little to lighten the heaviness in her heart. She had made a choice. She would find the man who had scammed her. With a deep breath, she typed "online scams" into the search bar. A flood of information filled the screen, but Celestine was determined to sift through it all. "Just be careful. Sometimes these people can be dangerous." Celestine nodded, even though Lisa couldn't see her. "I will. I have to do this." The more she learned about Orion, the more her resolve grew. He had a history of deceit stretching back years, and he had left a trail of broken dreams in his wake. With every story she read, her anger flared, but so did her determination. She was not just a victim, she was a fighter. One evening, Celestine gathered her courage and posted in the forum, "I want to confront Orion. Who's with me?" The responses came flooding in. "Count me in. I'll help you find him." The solidarity she felt from the group lifted her spirits, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. As she prepared for the confrontation, Celestine found herself at a crossroads. She wanted justice, but she was also afraid of what she might do when she found him. Is this about justice or revenge? She wondered aloud one night, speaking to herself in the quiet of her apartment. The thought gnawed at her. She remembered the faces of the other victims, their pain mirrored in her own. "What if I just want to make him feel my hurt?" she whispered, her heart heavy with the weight of her emotions. The next day, Celestine received a message from another forum member, Alex. "I found out where Orion might be. He's in a town nearby. We could go together." Celestine's heart raced. This was it. "I'm ready," she typed back, trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "Let's do this." As the day of the confrontation approached, Celestine felt a storm of emotions brewing inside her. She was scared, but also resolute. She had come too far to turn back now. With the help of her new friends, she would face the man who had stolen so much from her. She would demand answers, but also, perhaps, something deeper, an understanding of why he had chosen this path. "Whatever happens, I won't let fear control me," she told herself, staring out the window at the setting sun. The journey ahead would be difficult, but Celestine was ready to embrace it. She was not just seeking revenge, she was seeking closure, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to reclaim her life. Celestine sat at her small kitchen table, her heart racing as she stared at the address she had written down. It belonged to Orion, the man who had not only scammed her, but had also taken away her dreams. She had spent countless hours digging through online forums and talking to other victims. Now, she had a lead. He was in a neighboring town, and she was determined to confront him. With every passing moment, doubt crept into her mind. What if he was dangerous? What if she was making a huge mistake? She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside her. "I can't back down now," she whispered to herself. "I need to face him." As she drove, the streets blurred past her. With each turn, her anxiety grew. What would she say? Would he even listen? She parked her car a few blocks away from the address, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. She could see a small cafe nearby where an online meeting was set to take place. It was rumored that Orion would be there, and she knew this was her chance. Celestine walked towards the cafe, her heart pounding in her chest. She spotted a group of people gathered outside, their faces lit by the glow of their laptops. They seemed to be engaged in a heated discussion. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the door and stepped inside, scanning the room for any sign of Orion. Her eyes fell on a man sitting at a table in the corner, his back turned to her. Could it be him? She strained to hear the conversation around her. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a mix of hope and despair as others shared their stories of loss. She took a seat at a nearby table, pretending to focus on her laptop while keeping an ear out for any mention of Orion. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. "I just wanted to trust someone, you know? I thought I was making a good investment." It was Orion's voice, low and filled with regret. Celestine's heart raced as she leaned closer, her curiosity piqued. "I lost everything," another voice chimed in, shaky with emotion. "My savings, my future, how could you do this to us?" Orion's response was barely audible. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just trying to survive." Celestine's heart twisted at his words. He sounded vulnerable, almost human. As the conversation continued, she heard bits of Orion's story. He spoke of his own struggles, how he had lost his job, and felt desperate to provide for his family. Celestine felt a pang of sympathy. She too understood what it was like to feel trapped and helpless. "Why did you have to drag us into it?" the other victim snapped, anger and pain lacing their tone. "You could have asked for help instead of scamming us." Celestine's mind raced. This was not the monster she had imagined. He was a man, lost and scared, just like her. But that didn't erase the pain he had caused. She had wanted revenge, but now she felt something else. Confusion. After a few moments, Celestine knew she had to make a choice. Gathering her courage, she stood up and walked over to the table where Orion sat. Her heart pounded loudly in her ears, and she felt every eye in the room turn towards her. "Orion," she said, her voice steady despite the fear inside her. "I want to talk to you." He looked up, surprise written on his face. "You're one of the victims," he stated, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Yeah, I am, and I want to understand. Why did you do it?" Celestine asked, her voice softer now. Orion sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I could fix things. I thought I could help my family, but I just made everything worse." Celestine felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. "You hurt a lot of people. You took their trust and their money. But I see that you're hurting too." For a moment, silence hung between them. The weight of their shared pain filled the air. "Maybe I'm not the person you think I am," Orion said quietly. "I never wanted to be a criminal." "I know," Celestine replied, her heart softening. "But you can change. You can make things right." In that moment, everything shifted for Celestine. She realized that her quest for revenge was more complicated than she had thought. It was not just about confronting Orion. It was about understanding the pain that lay beneath his actions. As she stepped back, she felt a strange sense of empowerment. She was no longer just a victim. She was a person willing to see beyond the surface, to find a path towards healing and redemption. Celestine stood outside the small, dimly lit cafe where she had tracked down Orion. Her heart raced as she felt the weight of what she was about to do. The cafe was quiet, with only a few patrons scattered around, sipping their drinks and lost in their own thoughts. She took a deep breath, steadying herself before pushing the door open and stepping inside. As she scanned the room, her eyes landed on a man sitting alone at a table in the corner. He looked weary, his shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world rested upon them. This was Orion. Celestine felt a mix of anger and pity wash over her. She had imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was here, she was not sure what to say. "Orion," she called out, her voice slightly trembling. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Celestine?" he replied, recognition dawning in his eyes. He motioned for her to sit down, and she hesitated for just a moment before sliding into the chair opposite him. "What do you want?" Orion asked, his tone defensive. Celestine took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I want to talk about what you did, about the scam. You hurt a lot of people. You hurt me." Orion's expression changed, a shadow crossing his face. "I know," he said quietly. "I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to survive." "Survive?" Celestine echoed, her voice rising. "You took away my dreams. You took away my hope." "I was desperate," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I made terrible choices. I thought I could control it, but it spiraled out of hand." Celestine felt a mix of anger and empathy. Here was the man who had deceived her, yet he seemed just as lost as she was. She took a moment to collect her thoughts. "You have to understand the impact of your actions," she said, her voice firmer now. "You need to face what you've done." Orion looked down at the table, his hands trembling. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to change. I really do. I just don't know how." In that moment, something shifted in Celestine. She realized that she had a choice. She could lash out, demand revenge, or she could offer him a chance for redemption. "What if I help you?" she suggested, surprising even herself. "What if we work together to make amends?" Orion's head snapped up, disbelief written all over his face. "You would do that for me?" "Yes," Celestine replied, her voice steady. "But it's going to take a lot of work. You need to confront your actions and help those you've hurt." "I don't deserve your kindness," he said, tears brimming in his eyes. "After everything I've done." "Maybe not," Celestine agreed softly. "But everyone deserves a second chance. including you." The air between them grew thick with emotion. Orion's shoulders shook as he fought back tears. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted, his voice cracking. "You can," Celestine said, her tone filled with conviction. "It won't be easy, but I believe you can change. We can help each other." Orion looked at her, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "I want to try," he whispered. "I really want to try." As Celestine sat across from him, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. This was not the confrontation she had imagined. Instead of anger, she felt a sense of compassion. In offering Orion a chance for redemption, she discovered her own strength. The pain she had endured transformed into a powerful resolve. Together, they talked about the steps they could take. Celestine shared her ideas about reaching out to other victims, creating a support group, and raising awareness about scams. Orion listened intently, his expression shifting from skepticism to determination. In that little cafe, amidst the quiet clatter of cups and soft murmurs of conversations, something beautiful began to blossom. Celestine understood that healing was not just about seeking justice, it was also about understanding and compassion. And as they forged a new path together, she realized that this journey would empower them both, turning their pain into something meaningful. As the sun began to set over Maplewood, Celestine sat on her porch, reflecting on the journey she had taken. The air was warm, carrying with it the sweet scent of blooming flowers. She thought back to the days when she felt lost and broken, trapped in a cycle of despair. Those days felt like a distant memory now, replaced by a growing sense of hope. "I never thought I could come this far," she murmured to herself, tracing her fingers over a notebook filled with business ideas. Each page told a story of her struggles, her dreams, and her determination. It was hard to believe that she had once been consumed by the need for revenge against Orion. Now, she understood that true justice was not about anger, but about healing. That evening, Celestine decided to reach out to the community of victims she had come to know. They had formed a support group, sharing their experiences and helping one another rebuild their lives. She picked up her phone and called Sarah, a fellow victim who had become a close friend. "Hey, Sarah, it's Celestine," she said when Sarah answered. "Celestine, how are you?" Sarah's voice was warm and inviting. "I'm good. I've been thinking about our group," Celestine replied. "I want to organize a meeting to talk about raising awareness for scams. We need to help others who might be in our shoes." "That sounds amazing," Sarah exclaimed. "I've been wanting to do something like that. Let's plan it together." As they chatted about the details, Celestine felt a sense of purpose fill her heart. She was no longer just a victim. She was becoming a voice for those who had been silenced by deceit. The conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and shared hopes. Later that week, Celestine stood in front of a small crowd at the local community center. She felt a mix of nerves and excitement as she looked at the faces before her. Each person had a story, a connection to the pain she had once felt. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady. "I want to share my journey and what I've learned from it. We can't let scammers take away our power. We need to support each other and raise awareness in our community." The audience listened intently as Celestine spoke about her experiences, her confrontation with Orion, and the lessons she had learned. She emphasized the importance of understanding and healing over revenge. "Together, we can create a network of support," she said passionately. "We can help prevent others from falling victim to scams. Let's turn our pain into strength." After her speech, several people approached her, sharing their own stories. They expressed gratitude for her courage and the hope she inspired in them. The sense of community grew stronger, and Celestine felt a weight lift off her shoulders. In the following weeks, Celestine poured her heart into her new business. She wanted it to reflect her journey and the connections she had made. With each step, she felt more empowered. She reached out to local artisans and small business owners, creating a space where their products could shine. One afternoon, while setting up her shop, She received a surprise visit from Orion. She had not seen him since their fateful meeting, and her heart raced at the sight of him. "Celestine," he began, his voice shaky. "I wanted to apologize. I've been working on myself since we last spoke. Your words really changed me." Celestine looked at him, surprised. "I'm glad to hear that, Orion. I hope you find your path to redemption." "I'm trying," he replied, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I want to make amends. Maybe I can help with your business in some way." She thought for a moment, considering his offer. "If you truly want to change, then let's work together on something positive. But remember, trust takes time." Orion nodded, understanding the weight of her words. As they discussed ideas, Celestine felt a sense of closure. They were on different paths, but both were seeking change. As Celestine locked up her shop that day, she looked out at the vibrant community around her. Her heart swelled with hope. She had turned her pain into purpose, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, with the support of her community and the possibility of redemption for Orion, she felt ready to embrace a brighter future. Share this story if you believe that healing and community can transform our lives for the better. Leave a comment about a time when you turned your pain into purpose, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.